And that's the lesson for me. We all saw it happening, and we all refused to see it.
And Jake Tapper, everyone knows he participated in the cover-up around Joe Biden's mental health. Then he wrote the book about it. Then he got shit all over because of it. It was the strangest press tour I've ever seen. Here he is quoting Orwell while he did the Orwellian thing as if he had nothing to do with it.
George Orwell once wrote that, quote, "We are all capable of believing things which we know to be untrue. And then when we are finally proved wrong, impudently twisting the facts so as to show that we were right. Intellectually, it is possible to carry on this process for an indefinite time. The only check on it is that sooner or later, a false belief bumps up against a solid reality, usually on a battlefield." Now, when George Orwell wrote that, he was talking about World War II. He wrote, quote, "The Germans and the Japanese lost the war quite largely because their rulers were unable to see facts which were plain to any dispassionate eye." And then he said, and this is one of my favorite quotes ever, "To see what is in front of one's nose needs a constant struggle." And that's the lesson for me. We all saw it happening, and we all refused to see it. And maybe some of you are exceptions.
You almost got it right at the end. Except it wasn't us. It was you, Jake. All he had to do at the end was take off the glasses and be like, "By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I participated. I'm actually sorry. And I know it's kind of ironic I wrote the book, but here I am, full mea culpa." Instead, he's pretending that people like us didn't exist.
Well, that half the country's media didn't exist, because you were saying for years, I was saying for years, I'm sure Arynne was saying for years, that Joe Biden didn't have the physical or mental capacity to be president. And most of our audience agreed. And so this, to me, is a interesting story example of, I feel like I could make every argument that they make on MSNBC better than most of the MSNBC guests could, because I read the New York Times and the Washington Post every day, and I understand their arguments, whereas there does not seem to be a similar ability to even analyze. You know where I saw this perfectly? You mentioned DeSantis. When Gavin Newsom and DeSantis debated on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News, Gavin Newsom got filleted because he doesn't ever have to actually stand up and make arguments outside of the echo chamber of left-wing media. And when he was confronted by DeSantis with the other side's arguments, it was like he had never seen or heard them before. And I think that's kind of the world that we're in. The only thing I'll say positive about Jake Tapper is, because of that, the only reason they covered Original Sin was because Jake Tapper wrote it. Dave, if you and I had written it, co-authors, and everything else had been the exact same in that book, they wouldn't have covered it. Jake Tapper was covered because he's of the left, and they were willing to trust him on the book. The other half that could have written it, Arynne could have written it, I could have written it, you could have written it. We could have written it all together and had the same exact sources telling the same exact stories, and they would have pretended it didn't exist.
You know, that's actually a great point. Like, if any of us or all of us had written it, we would have probably sold more copies because it would have gone to something that our audiences care about more, that didn't participate in the cover-up. And they would have never put it on the New York Times. Meanwhile, he gets #1 on New York Times, which obviously is fictitious anyway. So it just shows you how the grift works.